Hello, how is everybody? I am, hopefully this is working. I'm going to jump into Facebook and just double check because I hate it when it doesn't. And StreamYard was playing up yesterday, so definitely need to check. Yes, we are on. Great. Cool. How is everybody? Let me know if you're watching. If you're watching on the replay, let me know that as well. But today we are talking about things that you've tried and that have failed. And obviously, when we've got dogs, when we realize our dogs have got separation anxiety, it is really, really normal to reach out onto Dr. Google and try and find some solutions. I do it myself. It could be anything. I'll go out and go, well, I've got this problem. What do I do if? How do I resolve this? Blah, blah, blah. So it's really normal for us to try a lot of things when we've got a dog with separation anxiety to see what we can do to resolve it. So I did ask the question in the Facebook group and got a couple of replies. One of them was from Diane, and I really wanted to go through some of the stuff that she had said, and maybe just talks through some of the stuff. So Diane, one of the first things she said is leaving her dog via different scenarios, doors, times, and day. That is actually a good idea. So it's very funny that you should mention that because we just published, I literally just hit published on the Tales from the Doghouse podcast. It's also on YouTube. And one of the things, in this episode, we're talking about scenarios, and what sometimes we need to do is change them. So it can be that a dog has got a fair history at a certain time of day, it can be in the mornings when mum and dad have gone off to work and they're left alone. So they feel that mornings are harder for them. So when we're doing our training, we might want to move that training to set them up for success, especially when we're building those foundations. They're really important to a different time of day, which could be in the evening or something like that. Okay, so changing things up actually is a good idea. It could be a different door. It could be a different time of day. It could be a different day of the week. It could be all sorts of things. So not actually a bad idea to do, but of course we have to look at it in the context of other things as well. So, but I would not say that is something to discount. So have a listen to that episode. If any of you are thinking, oh, maybe that might work for me, have a listen to the episode. Tales from the Doghouse, and Tales is Tails. I'll share a link in the group anyway. But Tales from the Doghouse, separation. Actually, I'll write it in StreamYard for those watching so you guys can see it. It's called Tales from the Doghouse, separation anxiety explained. And I'm going to show it here. So that is available on YouTube, and it is also available on all good listening apps. So it's just a coincidence that one of the things that Diane had tried is what we talk about this week. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, and same with the podcast. And then she says the next one was leaving her to bark it out, and she only did that once. Yes, that's not recommended. Unfortunately, what we generally find is that the dog's behavior escalates. It's rare that it diminishes. It can do with a young dog that's learning the ropes, learning to be by themselves, and especially when you layer in your exercise and enrichment. I guess what we look for if we do go down that road is what happens next. So if you let them bark for a little while and then they stop and that's it and it's over, that's completely different to if you let them bark and it escalates and it goes on and on and on and on and the dog gets more and more panicked. That's not a good thing. The next one was never leaving her alone except when training for over 2 years. Well, generally, we would say that would be a good thing to do, not to leave them alone. We do ask people to manage their absences or suspend their absences so the dog isn't having over threshold moments, because every time they have an over threshold moment, it cements the fear of being left home alone. So that is a good thing. And then we add in the training and build up the time gradually using desensitization and gradual exposure therapy. So I'm sorry it didn't work for you, Diane, but that is probably one of the core ingredients of separation anxiety training. So without knowing your circumstances specifically, I'm just going through your list and being general about it, having a broad conversation with everybody. Magic mat to relax. Magic mat is good. So that's place training. On your bed, stay on your bed. That is particularly good for dogs that try to block their mums and dads from leaving. So often, I've got one client in particular at the moment, but I've had them before, the dog might literally grab them as they're trying to walk to the exit point, and might even nip, or they might grab hold of their trousers or something, or they might just get in their face and block them. Dogs like that, it's usually good to teach them some place training to stop them from doing that. I did have one client too. It was her dog was a young dog and was a door bolter. So if she opened that door, the dog would bolt out the door. So that dog needed magic mat. She tried using a baby gate. We got rid of that very, very quickly when she started working with me, because it just made the dog worse. That barrier frustration made the dog worse. So magic mat's really good for those types of dogs. Crate training, yes, so that also comes under barrier frustration as well. So it can, they can be akin, a bit similar. Crates for some dogs make it harder for them, basically. Just harder for them to cope with being home alone. So in that respect, it's adding another layer of fear. It's like claustrophobia. I get claustrophobia. I don't like being in a crate. I don't like being confined. I don't like being in a crate. My greatest fear would be getting stuck in a lift for hours on end. That would terrify me. I would be so panicked. And some dogs are exactly the same. So you put them in a crate, they get panicked, and that fight flight kind of fear. It's not a nice feeling, and that's when they might try to break out of a crate, or they shut down because they don't know what else to do. And then add another layer on top of that, which is, of course, mum leaving. That's really hard. And often dogs are fine if you're there, but you walk out the door, that's just too much for them. So crate training, it can work for some dogs. Dogs that want that den feeling. And obviously, whenever we're doing crate training, we do that outside of our training first before we introduce it to separation anxiety training. It depends on the dog. But in general, they usually prefer more space when you're doing your home alone training. Shutting behind a gate door for short periods while I'm in the house. Yes. So I actually don't really adhere to that methodology. I don't believe in forcing independence. So all my puppies have been brought up with access to me. I don't force them into, a gated off area. If I can't keep an eye on them, then I might tether them to me. I don't get me wrong, I still crate train, and if I need my time, then I might put them, make sure they're tired, etc., mentally and physically, put them into a crate or what have you, and then they're there with something that's going to occupy them, but they're tired enough not to care. But in general, I don't force it. I like them to gain that naturally as they gain confidence in themselves as they grow up. When they hit their teens, they're usually more independent. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but it should be done mindfully. So do it in a way where there's no panic involved. As I said, the dog must be mentally and physically exhausted, ready to rest. And then, you could do that. But I'm not strict about it. My dogs, as I said, they have access to me, and then as they get older, they just like, oh, well, I'm going to go off into another room now and have my nap. So it can work. But is it necessary? That's the question. If you are going to do it, never let the dog go over threshold. So you don't want to make them panic. And often if they can see you, if there's that barrier there and they're not in the right frame of mind, they're not ready to rest, then they start carrying on. And, you'll get the barking, the crying, the howling, because they want to get to you because they can see you. So it's frustration. So I'm not big on it. Not saying it shouldn't be done, but it's got to be done mindfully. Door desensitization. Okay, so that is so the dog is used to you walking to the door, and there's no value in the door. It's backwards and forwards. I do have a course on it on my website if anybody wants to have a look at it, nestjones.com. Let me just jump in here. I'll get rid of this. So nestjones.com. There is a door desensitization mini course on there just to show you the steps on how to do it properly, because often it's easy to get it wrong, basically. But yeah, door desensitization, again, Diane, I am sorry it didn't work for you. I think, I'm not saying you did this, please don't get me wrong. I have had clients that feel that door desensitization is kind of standing there, opening and shutting it, opening and shutting it. I think the whole idea is here you are sitting down, relaxing, you stand up, you walk to the door, you come back. It's boring. It's boring for you. It's boring for your dog. So in the end, I like to think of the dog pretty much eye rolling at you. Oh my goodness, she's doing that again. And of course, if you can't step outside the door for 1 second, how can you start any separation anxiety training? So if your dog is reacting with you literally stepping outside the door for 1 second, you can't start the training. You just can't, because if you can't do it for 1 second, how do you do it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, etc., etc.? Desensitizing to departure cues. So departure cues could be, and they vary. It depends on what triggers the dog, but they're the things that trigger the dog. Usually it could be keys, it could be certain shoes, uniforms, could be a certain coat. It could be, I had one client who took the lunch out of the fridge to go to work. That was one of them. Could be putting your dog out for a wee before you leave it. Could be all sorts of things. For a woman, it could be, putting on makeup or blow drying your hair, putting on certain clothes, heels or something that totally tell the dog that it's not coming with them. I think with pre-departure cues too, or when we look at them and what might trigger the dog, we also have to appreciate, does the dog think they're coming with you? So are they showing behavior that actually indicates that the dog thinks it's coming with you, as opposed to being left by itself? But pre-departure cues can be quite tricky. And I don't introduce them till the dog has got a solid foundation of safe absences. And when I say solid, I mean, I want that dog to be really consistent. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll hear me mention the 4 C's. The 4 C's are home alone time is calm, confident, consistent, and comfortable with being home alone. So I want that dog to be all those things, the 4 C's, for about 30 minutes, a solid 30 minutes before I start introducing the pre-departure cues. Because I find that if you introduce them at the beginning, what can happen is that you're complicating things for the dog. For me, when you're doing your training, the beginning is the foundation. And like all foundations, we want to make them strong and solid. And by starting with pre-departure cues, I think it's just complicating the issue. Get them out of the picture and start them a bit later when we've got a dog that's comfortable. Minimizing pre-departure cues, removing all departure cues, yes, and I just touched on that. Karmic system using markers, invisible dog. I don't know what that is. I know you're not watching now, Diane, but maybe if you're watching this later, you might be able to tell me what that is. I have no idea. Yeah. Vet behavior advice regarding frustration. That's interesting. Is this because they're saying your dog does not have separation anxiety, or are they saying it because, and they feel it's frustration as opposed to separation anxiety? Yeah, without knowing what that advice is, it's hard for me to address that one. Graduated departures from touching the door to seconds to minutes using, graduated departures, keeping her in a different room while I leave the house. So, okay, so letting her have the run of the house. Diane, it sounds like you've tried everything. Those are all the scenarios that we can talk about, that it's a case of trialing different things sometimes. And when you do trial different things, you've got to do it more than once, because we don't get a full, what's the right word? We don't get a full sort of picture if we just try something once, whether it's going to work or not. Leaving her have the run of the house, allowing or blocking access to the windows. And those are two different things. For each dog, it's different. So some dogs prefer to see out the window. They do better, and some dogs don't. Again, Diane, without knowing more about your dog specifically, and it does sound like you've tried everything, it's hard for me to talk about you specifically. Calming spray, so I'm assuming pheromones, that sort of stuff. Have not heard of many people getting that much. They see results, so they can see some benefit, maybe a little bit, but generally it's not a cure, is it? There's no cures. It really is a case of trialing things, hoping something works. There's no magic. When I say there's no cures, what I mean is there's no magic pills. So anything still has to be done. Anything you give your dog, whether it's calming treats, calming sprays, CBD oil, medication, prescribed or not, has to be done in tandem with training. Like I said, there's no magic pills. The only magic pill you might get is something that completely knocks your dog out, but that's not really training it to be home alone. It's just knocking your dog out. So it's not going to help your dog learn to be home alone. Toys, yes, toys, food. I don't use food in training at all. Don't find it helps. We have dogs that will gobble up the food and then they'll panic anyway. We have dogs that don't touch the food at all because they're too panicked. And also it can become a pre-departure cue. Radio, TV, yes. So some dogs don't do well with the radio or TV. Firstly, I would prefer music, a calming music, but then you have to build that association first for the dog. They hear the music, it means they're calm. Go back and listen to the interview I did with Lisa Spector in this group on the Facebook page. And she talks about how to introduce music properly, because it has to be done properly. Otherwise, it probably won't have any effect. And also dogs that are noise reactive, dogs that have anxiety about certain noises, you have no control over what's going to come on the TV or the radio, especially with ads. It could be anything, fireworks, big loud noises, explosions, who knows. So that's why music is probably preferred. Sitter training with 4 different people, including them also practicing graduated departures. Oh, okay. She can't have medication due to ill health. Yeah. Yes, I'm not surprised you're at your wit's end and feel like a prisoner in your own home. Not surprised. Diane, I know I know you're in England, so let's talk. I totally can find a time to suit you. It is literally just, I have clients in England, so you'll be fine. Okay. And Christina says she's tried CBD biscuits and making sure the garden has lots of toys when I'm at work. And I'm assuming they didn't work, Christina. So CBD, again, new kid on the block. Well, it's not the new kid on the block, but there's not enough information about its how good it is for dogs with separation anxiety or anxiety in general. I am trying to reach out to a CBD vet here in Australia. Haven't done that yet. I must write that down on my list because I want to get some more information from an expert. I'm not that person. I don't know enough about it. I do know, I have been told that somebody said it wasn't as good for anxiety as we might think, but good for other stuff. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. And toys again. Yeah. A really panicked dog's not going to be playing with its toys. That's what I've got to say on that. So if they're playing with their toys, then that's good, unless they're stressed and they're downloading into the toy. So it's knowing the dog in front of us and saying, oh yeah, he's having fun, he's playing. I've got no issue with that. That's fantastic if the dog's comfortable enough to play. But if the dog is like stressed and doesn't know where to put it, so it's downloading into the toy, it's better than the furniture, but it still means the dog is stressed and frustrated and upset, anxious. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, well, nobody joined me today. It's a bit disappointing. So I might even get off here. I could go and do some work. Yeah, where is everybody today? Maybe the topic wasn't to your liking. If you're watching on replay, please hashtag replay or just let me know that you watched it on the replay and ask any questions. I will be monitoring for questions, so make sure you ask. Happy to answer anything. And if you've got a topic you would like me to discuss specifically, let me know as well. By the way, if you want to talk to me in person, you can reach me at nessjones.com and you can book a free 30-minute Zoom consultation, and I can tell you about my programs and how I can help you. And yeah, the other thing is I have 2 masterclasses coming up. If you're not on my email list, let me know and I'll email you the details. I will be sharing in the link. But the next one is on my Saturday at 10 a.m. So the same time as this live, but on my Saturday, it'll be, so if you're in Australia, that will be like 11 a.m. possibly, or it could be 8 a.m. if you're in Perth. It's so confusing on these time zones. In America, I think it's 5 p.m. PT and 8 p.m. ET. Obviously, that's no good for the Europeans. So I've got another one running next for, that 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. America is on the Wednesday. No, sorry, on the Friday evening. So my Saturday, your Friday evening. And the one I've got the next week is to take in the Europeans. So that is my Friday at 4 p.m., which would be your Friday morning at about, well, I think, depending on where you are, around 6 or 7. Yeah, if you need the link, let me know. Just say, please give me the link. You can post it in this comment, or you can post it separately in this group, or you can email me at ness@ruffdiamonds.com. Oh, actually, I'll just put it here. ness@ruffdiamonds.net, not .com. That one. But yes, otherwise just jump on the website. Easy peasy. And yeah, the masterclass is on the for I can't even remember. The 4-step blueprint to start decoding your dog's separation anxiety. And it was also include the 3 biggest mistakes that dog guardians make when they try to resolve this on their own. So it's really valuable. You will learn some stuff. And yeah, I hope to see you there. Anyway, I shall get off here and we shall see you next week.